Oh, people there.
People there?
Hello.
Hi guys.
Right, you keep your eye on the waiting room, Lauren, if that's all right.
Hello,
Hi,
Cameras
Trevor.
on.
Thanks for putting your camera on. Anyone else brave enough to show their face?
Yeah.
Right, can you hear us
I'm
now,
muting
guys?
myself by accident, sorry.
Hopefully you can hear us now. There we are. Anyone else can pop their camera on? It'd be nice to see you. We know you're
Can we
really
spotlight
there.
Adam and I? I can't do it from here. That's what I was trying to do when I muted myself by accident. Just on gallery view. Spotlight. Very good.
Okay,
There we
yeah.
go. There we go. So once you do that, you've got to go back and do gallery view. It's there.
Okay. Yep.
Brilliant.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Okay. We've got 30 seconds to go, so still a few people turning up. Today's webinar, 8 tips for finding buy-to-let opportunities in the UK. There's a funny thing. Well, you wrote a list of 8.
Oh yeah, I know, yeah.
And I wrote the list. The reason we pick 8, because in our minds there are 8, but actually it turns out I think there's
About 10.
there's about 10, yeah, because some of them is actually a different thing. But so yeah, there's previously unadvertised bonus tips.
I'd like to do a bit more Q&A this week as well, so little reminder about the chat function of Zoom. If you hover along the bottom, if you're on a computer that is, I'm not quite sure what it is on a phone, but there are a selection of buttons. One's called chat. Type anything you want in there, questions wise, and we'll read it out and answer it. Also, Lauren, who's running the call in the background, will be popping some information in there during the call, and there'll be links to book calls with us where we can have a more personal chat.
Cool, right.
Hopefully you can hear us okay.
Yep.
And let's get cracking.
I'll pull the chat up, Marsh. I'll leave it where it is there.
Yeah,
Go on then, you
we'll
kick
do the
off.
chat in about 40 minutes.
Yeah. Seeing as you wrote your list first, you go through your list, and we'll have a chat about each point of the 8 points, and I'll cross
These are
off
in
where one.
no particular order of importance, by the way. So I'm not like starting 1's the most important, 8's the least important.
8
They're just 8 things,
8 things.
that you need to consider.
I've got a little bit of a sentence as to where this webinar came from. It's the feeling that, and I know that when I was buying houses, I don't buy houses anymore. I buy houses, but other people source them for me. So when I was a landlord buyer for myself or a property sourcer, and I know that when you speak to our team, it feels this way. Sometimes you get that, not very often for our team anymore, but you look at I don't know, whatever portal it is, Rightmove or whatever, and you just can't see the deal.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's.
Oh no, I can put deals in front of a client and they can't see it, even when we've sourced it.
It looks like nothing stacks up, and you almost can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
It's this list that we're going to go through today, which makes sense of it. Sometimes it is quite often there in plain sight. That is a deal, but either you didn't quite spot it, or didn't understand that you need to move that way, offer a little bit more, less on that, take some off the renovation. Actually, it'll rent for a bit more than you first said. Just dig into deeper and refine the numbers. And once you sort of move everything 5%, then it works. What you've then got to be careful of is that you're not kidding yourself. And that's where you sometimes go around in circles. Is this a deal?
Well, that's actually, funnily enough, probably can lead us into the first point on my list, is looking at the yield and the return. And quite often, people over-focus on that, and therefore don't think enough about, I probably could pay an extra £1,000 here, and it might adjust the return a little bit, but realistically I'm thinking you've got to think long-term with the yield. Don't just think, oh, that's what it's going to be day one. Yeah. Next year it's going to be better, next year it's going to be even better, the year after that, eventually it's going to cash flow a lot more than what it cash flows today, because the rent's going to go up. Yeah. And if your mortgage, unless you're constantly refinancing, increasing that mortgage loan, but I've got a couple that I've not pulled any money out of because the rates are high and stuff. Better. The loan to value has gone from 75 to 45.
So the deal's
actually better on the mortgage rate, so then the cash flow is better. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. If the deal looks good today,
It will look
good enough,
unbelievable.
it's going to look a bit even better in a year or 2 years' time.
Yeah.
The other thing when talking about yield is calculating yield. Most everybody would look at the value of the property and the rent and put one against the other, and that's where you get your sort of your investable 10%, let's say, 8 to 10%. I mean, if it was 12%, you'd be very lucky, or be looking in particular parts of the country. It's more nuanced than that, because if you talk about your return on investment, so actually the money that you put in it, and then another word which is similar but comes 6 months, 12 months down the line, which is return on capital employed, because if you manage to refinance the initial purchase back out, it might be that your return on investment, let's call it that, is different to your return on capital employed. It will be the same to start off with because you put the money in, but once you manage to take your initial capital back out, and there's a school of thought that says, and I don't think this is totally sensible, but if it costs you nothing, as in you've got none of your own money in there, yield's infinite, and I think you should be always aiming to make a cash yield as well. If you've
bought a house and you've done a renovation and you're aiming to refinance a chunk of your original investment back out, you won't get it all back out on the first refinance after 6 months, a year, but on the second refinance, you certainly will, and then you like you say, it's infinite.
It's infinite. The return on capital employed. What I'd always like, what I always look at, and it's getting to this point on some of my properties now, where return on investment, 10 years after I bought this thing, you've got to look at what capital have I got sat there. That's my capital. It's gone up in value. It's there. Am I better off sometimes? And there's one or two when I'm thinking now, I might be better off selling that property because the capital there, I can redeploy it in something that's a little bit juicier. And we're going to talk about our best locations, the actual kind of houses you buy in a minute. They're some of the other eight things that we've got on here. But the kind of houses that I bought 10, 15 years ago were great 10, 15 years ago, and they were what we're going to be talking about now, today, but 15 years ago. So there's different locations. They're basically the same. The house looks the same, tenant type's the same, they're just in a different city. Instead of being 50, 100, 150, they're now 200, 250, 300,000, some of them. So, great, that's the plan, isn't it? But actually your yield on some of these £300,000 houses, I don't want to take any more money out of them because the rent isn't going to buy that much.
Exactly.
They're edging into that 6 and 7 where it just doesn't work, the yield's not there. So that's worth looking at. And then the other thing I've just written down, which is when looking at yield, look at the actual cash yield. So that's not percentage, that's actually the cash. And you've got to pay for stuff, obviously. So we're talking about 10%, 12%, whatever, great. That's a nice sort of accountant's way to look at things. But a boiler costs £2,000. Your insurance costs an amount. And you want to make sure that the profit is, in my opinion, a minimum cash profit every single month. 250?
Yeah, oh god, from the first let.
From the first let. Yeah. To give you that nice buffer. I mean, if it could be 350, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But 250 to the kind of property. We will talk about property types in a minute, but that sort of 125,000 pound house.
Yeah,
with
that's what it's worth.
With very little of your own money.
That'll be what it will be worth after you've bought and renovated it. Yeah.
And 250 would be a bare minimum. You'd be, like Adam says, hoping for that, aiming for that to go up. Maybe more than hoping. Quite safe in the knowledge that rents are rising, values are rising.
Certainly.
Over time. I mean, if you get 350, great. So I think that's yield. They're the numbers we're looking at. Look at the yield in more than one way. If you're just looking at it, it's going to make me 10%. I'm just going to buy this and treat it like a bank account. That's perhaps not the smartest or cleverest way.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool. Next thing on my list is location. So that is, it's a bit more nuanced. It's the area of the country, the city, the region, but then within that, the specific best location. So if I've chosen Nottingham, now I need to know which part of Nottingham, which area. Is that, okay, now I'm zoning on that. Is that a good street? You can always be oh, that looks a cheap house, that looks brilliant, but then you don't know the local area well enough. That's actually a really not a great street within that, but then 200 metres around the corner, brilliant. So you need you need to know your location really well, or you need to be using somebody to find the house for you that does.
Yeah, it is key.
Because it's amazing how many people will say, someone said it yesterday, I'm not sure about the house, it looks like a busy road. Okay, and I said, don't worry about that, you're not living there.
Busy road in some areas of it wasn't Nottingham, I guess,
Right.
but they might be
So,
more expensive.
Yeah, it's not going to affect the rentability. It's not going to affect the long-term tenants will want to live there. Those houses have been there for decades.
Yeah.
One of the busiest roads in Nottingham, where Craig, our lettings director, used to live.
Yeah, that was really expensive.
All those houses are big detached houses. They're a bit set back from the road, and that road is really busy. It's got £1 million houses on it. So, you can be totally the other way as well. You need to know. You need to know
the areas. Yeah.
You need to know the area. Yeah.
So if we think about tips, things to make things, we're just talking about location. And Adam, if you want to talk about in a minute once we finish this, but our best locations actually give you the information. But right area, right street.
That's the best way to put it.
Is the right. Yeah. So what is the right area? I think we talked about this last week, which was generally speaking, if you're looking for tips for finding buy-to-let opportunities. There are more opportunities, and that word means profit opportunity, doesn't it? Or capital growth, capital opportunity. The further up north you go.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful. I mean, not everywhere. You can't just go drive up north and pick anything. But generally speaking, if you go further up north or considering opportunities further up north, you are finding more opportunities. Then you've got to find the right region. Up north, there's lots of places. I mean, you probably wouldn't be in the Derbyshire Dales if you consider that north. Some people say that's the Midlands, and I suppose if you sat there in Manchester, that's the south. But it's got to be the right bits of up north. Some bits are too expensive, some bits are too cheap, so you've got to get that Goldilocks bit. And then once you sort of honed in on the hot spot, if you like, it's down to the absolute, like Adam says, you've got to have the local knowledge and find the absolute right street. A region on the up and local regeneration are things to look out for as well. Investment
going into the area, most definitely. You want to be ahead of the curve. Location-wise, I think the right location, for me, this is all opinion, is just be ahead of that curve with where it comes to regeneration in the area and stuff. Don't go somewhere that the newspaper article in a main broadsheet has told you these are the buy-to-let hotspots. Some lazy journalist has put together, and it's Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, that sort of stuff. It's not that.
It's out of date.
You've missed the first, what I like to call the first bump of capital growth. So Jess will tell you, I used to buy houses in Northampton, they're now worth 250 grand. The right time to buy Northampton was when you bought them there, because you've had all the capital growth from when they were cheap to now, and now you're realising a really high rent.
And there's a point after I bought them, probably 5 years after it, that Northampton started appearing on the charts of the best places to buy.
Like Nottingham did 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah. So it's not the best places to buy; it's the best places to have bought 5 years ago. All those lists have got there. They are like that.
By the time it's in those lists,
look what just happened. They're saying, that's too late. So
if it's already happened, it's happened.
Yeah, exactly. They are not the best areas. They are the best areas that you should have been buying in 5 years ago. That's invariably what that list is. That's why the idea of just generally being a little bit further up north is you've got more opportunities that way. You're buying that 5 years ago versus we did a bit on the northeast. Was it 2 weeks ago? We did a webinar on that.
Maybe it was last week. It was all blending into one.
Was it? And the amount of houses that feels like it's ground for opportunity. It's like Nottingham was. You can't buy a house like that in Nottingham anymore. But you can see what's going to happen, can't you, with all the regeneration?
Yes, definitely,
Other couple of things that I wrote down here, because when you're sort of looking at your locations, it's not entirely relevant to your bit, but I think it is a tip. Most properties, you'll be looking on Rightmove, or Zoopla or one of those things. Most properties are for sale by estate agents. I think that's worth pointing out. Some people make it really complicated. Something like 95% of all houses are on the market by estate agents. Direct to vendor and other ways of getting deals through are, do you know what? I can tell you now, we don't do them. It's a lot of hard work and effort.
We'll only do a direct to vendor deal if it's come to us.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah, we don't go for sourcing them and finding that way.
No. Now, we do, because our guys are professional sourcers, deals do come to them. We've got one at the minute going through for a client. They put an order in for a specific house, and then a couple of weeks later, a direct to vendor opportunity came along.
Interestingly, if you want to put a mortgage on a direct to vendor house, you've got to put it through an agent. Most lenders don't like a direct to vendor deal. They want to see it on the market. But we've had to do that. We've had to pay people to put up, dummy money almost, go to a friendly estate agent, direct to vendor deal, put it on the market, we'll give you 500 quid, and then we'll buy it through you, so that otherwise it's not actually mortgageable, the lender won't like it. But yeah, I think it's worth pointing out, we see a lot of people sort of wasting, or maybe it's not a waste of time, and honestly maybe it works. If you want the absolute, I remember buying a house from an estate agent, and it had gone through it was Haddon Street. It had gone through the kind of website where you put your number in, we'll buy your house fast, which we've got one of those websites, and it does some things, but not loads. But they bought it really cheap. I think it was 30 grand, 38 grand or something. It was really cheap. I don't know what problems it had, and I was paying 50 grand for it. So somebody just made a very quick £10,000 out of it. So what? It's worth 150 grand now.
Definitely.
And deal flow and the pipeline is much more important. If I'm waiting around all year to get one or two of those deals, I can't do that. I need to go to an estate agent and ensure that you can buy whatever it is as a business, 100 deals, rather than one or two here and there. I've got one other thing to add to areas, and just the ratio. You got to talk about your best locations in a minute, but the ratio of how many properties you have to view to buy one.
Okay.
Just point out, it's hard work. It is hard work. I think, I know that we would view 10 to buy one. 10 to buy one. I would imagine you might view 20 to buy one. We're pretty good at them, and the deals do come to us. Having been in it for so long, our sources, an estate agent won't pick up the phone to them and say, come and look at this property on spec, unless they know that pretty much it's in the ballpark, it's on the market for the right money, the vendor's in the right position. Otherwise, they're just wasting everybody's time. And even at that, with that good relationship, it's still 1 in 10. So it's hard work.
Yeah, definitely.
Best locations.
Sort of give it, our best locations right now. My opinion, our opinion, is where we're operational. That's why they're our best locations. We could be in other areas if we wanted to be, but we're not. South Yorkshire and the Humber region. That's Hull and North Lincolnshire, South Yorkshire. We have a team covering that entire area, sourcing, renovating, managing.
Grimsby.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, popped it, didn't it? We've got a team in the northwest covering Burnley, Bolton, Accrington, around there. We've got a team in Stoke covering Stoke and Crewe. We've got a team in Middlesbrough and the Tees Valley. We've got a team in Newcastle and Sunderland. They are preferred areas right now. We still do a bit in East Midlands. Not as much because the prices have gone up like they did in Northampton. That kind of leads us into the ideal investment cost, which is my next point, point 3. They're our best locations that I've just explained, because the investment cost, which is point 3, how much you're actually going to spend on the house, is not sub 150k before you've even started renovating it. We prefer to buy, if we're going down the buy, refurbish, refinance model, if you're doing that as your strategy, they need to be the cheaper houses. You buy them for 50 to 85 grand typically. They're worth 90 to 140, 50k after the refinance. They're worth 250 grand in 5 to 10 years. You're not buying 250 to 300 grand houses now, which might look appealing because the rent's 1,200 quid a month. You're not getting the best return there. You're tying up too much money. You need to buy, refurbish, refinance, and keep going. Buy those cheaper houses. They're the ones that in 10 years' time are worth twice and 3 times what you paid for them.
A nice way to look at it is if you want a portfolio of £300,000 houses bringing in that kind of yield, build it 10 years early in £100,000 houses, and you'll have that. That's where I'm getting to now. I've been going for 20 years now, and the portfolio of stuff in Northampton is gentrified, and I've got a block of flats over there where the whole block, we don't really particularly buy flats, so it's a freehold. And when I bought them, they were worth 30 grand each. They can be worth 300 grand each by the time I finish with them. It's really smart area now. So I wouldn't have gone and bought £300,000 flats.
No,
times 10.
No, exactly. It's hard for some people to get into that mindset of buying what they perceive as a really cheap house because they think they're going to have a problem tenant. If the only people who want to live in a cheap house are problematic tenants.
You've got tenants down as tip number 5.
Yeah, true. So the cheaper houses don't come with all those stereotypical problems that people think they're going to have.
They can have if you don't manage them,
do it
right?
well,
but then so can an expensive house.
Right street, right area, gives you the right tenant and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I would personally say, if you're looking to start and build and optimize a property portfolio, look for that sweet spot, 50, 60 to 85k purchase price on a house that's a little bit run down, renovate it, add some value, refinance it, and keep building. My opinion.
Yep. Good. Okay. Next one you've got on your list is the ideal renovation cost.
Yeah, really important.
It is. Yeah, you can definitely spend too little or too much.
You can spend too little or too much. You can, in trying to keep the cost down,
cut
some corners that really you shouldn't be cutting. It's just going to bring you problems in the long run or even the short run. And then you can spend way too much by thinking you need to make it look all singing or dancing, and really you don't need to add all those extra touches. So it's
I saw an interesting TikTok video the other day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was about a lady who had spent £300. She got a house, and it was all in nice wallpaper, blah blah blah. And in order to sell it, because it had been on the market for several months, she took the wallpaper off, painted out the feature wall, changed the carpets to neutral. The whole sort of cost of it was £300 or £400, and it sold the next day. What you think, you see somebody going to interior decorators spec, and they get involved and they're putting together a buy-to-let in that frame, they're spending a fortune on it. And it is actually, I wouldn't say it's just as likely, it's more likely to put tenants off. A clean vanilla box that doesn't cost you so much money to put together is preferable, totally preferable, cost less.
The ideal, I've put here ideal renovation cost. It really should be the ideal renovation spec, to be quite honest with you. Knowing what we class as a decent and safe home, a highly lettable house, the nicest house on the street. If you have a specification that you work towards, you'll always come in on budget, at the right budget.
It also makes it very easy to price it when you are going around the thing, viewing it on the first or second, any viewing, when you're looking at it, pricing it up, if you know what you're working towards, so wherever it is now needs to go to there, my spec is that all the doors close properly without any gaps, because it's a fire regulation, that's a decent safe home's fire regulation. So you're just testing every door to make sure they do. If they do, they do. You don't have to change them. If they don't, you need to change them. So you go into a spec and you're writing it all down through with the schedule works. Anything else on that? So what are we spending at the moment on renovations?
Typical renovation for a rundown house.
Elliot was saying just yesterday.
Yeah. So if you're going to need to do what we would class a full renovation, which would include a rewire or pretty extensive electrical upgrade, a new boiler, some new radiators to accommodate the new boiler. Obviously then you're going to be doing a lot of replastering and decorating. You put a new kitchen, new bathroom, some roof work, some windows, carpets, flooring. It's 20k plus, 22 to 26 for a complete renovation. For a mid-sized renovation where you might just need to do a couple of little bits to the electrics to bring them up to speed, it's got an existing boiler which is relatively modern, and then you're still putting the new kitchen and the new bathroom in. It's 14 to 16 grand probably. Yeah. That's that typical one.
It is, and that's taken some getting used to for me.
Yeah,
because I used to pay, for something that's 14, 15 grand now, I used to pay 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Of course. Everything
you also used to rent them for 400 quid, and now you're getting 650 to 800.
Yeah.
So
I think it's worth pointing out, because there's people that still, we can do a full house renovation for 15 grand. You just can't. It's 25 now, isn't it? Full everything, 22 to 25.
Can if you're doing a lot of the labour yourself and you're taking all that time.
Of course, absolutely, you can. Yeah. But materials are what they are. You can't do the electrics yourself. You can't do the plumbing yourself. Also factor in your time as well. That's the other thing. I had a little van. I had a little Fiat Cinquecento van. When I first got going, I started doing all the renovations myself, and save you money for sure, but it doesn't save you as much as you can make by getting people to do it.
No, it didn't save any time.
No, 6 to 8 weeks to do a renovation for me, and I was full time with it, but I wasn't working anywhere else. I was doing that. I had a couple of people in, so I had some labour costs. Whereas, what do I guys knock it out in 4 weeks? The kind of renovation I'm talking about is probably 2.5, 3, and that's a whole 2 months worth of rent extra. They did a better job. So,
the ideal renovation cost is one that's been priced up properly and professionally at the outset as well. It's not necessarily the amount; it's the amount is correct. That when you've viewed it and you've priced your renovation, and then you come to actually start the work, you don't unearth a load of other problems that you should have spotted in the first place. So your ideal renovation cost is accurate. It could be 80 grand depending on the project.
We've done that.
You know what I mean? But if it's not accurate, it's not ideal. It's spotting things that other people might not. Oh, actually, there's an issue there that someone else might not have seen.
Yeah, we always say this, and there's 2 ways to get a renovation cheaper. You should try and do both. You've got to write the right list of works, which is what we've talked about here. So make sure it's not too much, not too little. It's the right list of works. But when you give that list to more than one builder to quote, get the right price for the right list of works. We give out the £15,000 renovation. There's the list. We know it's going to be 15 grand. You can definitely get another builder for the same list of works that will quote 25.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, so it's making sure the list of works is the right list. Everything's on it. It's not too much, not too little. But then giving it to a builder that and there's some that just. I'll be honest. If I was a builder, I'd try 25. Wouldn't I? Yeah. I'll try.
Of course you would.
And I might get it and then pick and choose. But we want the kind of builder that values the fact that we're giving them lots of work, repeat work, and keeps them busy, keeps them turning over. I had one other tip on the investment costs, and I think it will help you guys if you buy a manual, buy a DIY manual, become knowledgeable. When you've got a builder that's trying to tell you something that you're not quite sure of, maybe you don't even have to buy a book anymore, just go on YouTube or whatever, but understand bricks and mortar, plumbing, plastering, the costs, get into it.
Even if you're using like someone like us, a sourcer, we're a property sourcer, we manage renovations, schedule them, still be willing to learn and understand what's going on there. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it'll help. I spoke to a client a couple of weeks ago who was getting frustrated about the cost of, the chimney. There was some works on the chimney that needed doing, and the comment was, "Why have they taken the chimney pots off? Have they just tried to sell them?"
Yeah.
So, no, first of all, chimney pots aren't worth any money. They didn't try and sell them. They're capping them off to stop the water going down. But she was upset that. The chimney pot.
Understand what's going on.
Just understand the job because it was on the quote. The quote was cap chimneys off, do this, and ventilate whatever the thing that we need to do. And there weren't special chimney pots or anything. Just
some people like them as putting plants in a garden, but they ain't going to sell for much money.
No, that's £5. Yeah.
I've actually got one in my garden.
Yeah, nice, but you wouldn't pay £500 for it, do you? It's £5 or somebody's giving it away.
It's free.
Yes. Yeah, my favourite price. Okay, tip 5.
Perfect tenant. What does that look like?
Yeah, Well, I think first thing to say is this is the point where, well, you're going to be left with this bit for longer. You buy a house, you renovate it, what's that, 6, 7, 8 weeks? You're going to be left with this bit for 6, 7, 8, 9, 90 years. I don't know however long you're going to keep it. You pass it on to your kids or whatever. So having the right tenant and the right long-term management is where you make good on the promise that all those spreadsheets and numbers that you did about yield, return on capital employed, what you think it might refinance for, what you're going to make out of this, it all depends on bringing the rent in every month and holding it for the long term. So bringing the rent in every month makes you a profit every month. We already said it should be 250, 300.
I'm going to say something controversial.
Come on.
I don't think the perfect tenant is someone who's going to stay there forever, long term. You never get your rent up to as high as it could potentially be unless you're doing tenant turns. So yes, you want someone who's going to stay there for maybe, our average is about 3 years. I think that's good. I think in 3 years you can incrementally increase the rent up 25, 50 quid a year. But over the course of the 3 years, you'll probably find the rent's gone up 250 quid maybe. And on your tenant turn, every tenant turn I've done on any one of my houses, the rent has gone up a lot more than it would have done if that tenant had stayed. The perfect tenant is someone who looks after the house and pays the rent on time, let's be honest. That's all it is.
How do you find those? That's the trick. So how do you find the perfect tenant? Finding a tenant is very, very easy. There's loads of them, absolutely, like 20, 30. You stop counting per property, 20 or 30. It's not quite as crazy as it was a year and a bit ago, because obviously it was 100 something per. They didn't all apply, but
rents have gone up so much.
Yeah, people are staying.
People aren't moving.
Yeah, there was talk about rents maybe slackening back a little bit.
In London, rents have dropped.
In
the last month.
Yeah.
Rents have dropped in London because people aren't moving and they're not shifting empty houses.
Yeah. Whereas around all the properties that we have, definitely a month ago, 4 weeks ago, volumes were down ever so slightly, 20-30% down, but rents haven't slipped back, and now rents are actually on the rise again. I think it was, typically that first couple of weeks after Christmas is busy. Then it slackens off a bit because it's just the pent-up demand, but actually post-Christmas it's quiet, and now it's starting in the spring. Who wants to move before the sun shines out? Dark nights, you just try and time it. So we're moving plenty of people in now, and rents are going up. But how to find the right tenant? Number one, you've already got the right house in the right area, you've done the right renovation, so you've got the right product. And then really simply, you've got to do really good referencing.
So that's really important, the right product, having it. So if you put a slightly crappy house on the market, the same bad tenant will apply for that house as they would a nice one.
Yes.
But the good tenant won't apply for the slightly crappy house. Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to have your product right if you want a good tenant. You can't cut corners there and then think, everyone wants to just rent a house off me.
Yeah. So the sort of visualising it, the crappy house on the street has only got crappy tenants lining up to move in. The nice house, and it can be the same street, it can be exactly the same street, has got some nice people lining up outside it. All those crappy people, they're all lining up outside it too. Of course they are. They'll take the keys off you on the nice house if, but the nice tenants aren't walking over to that other side. So then it's down to referencing. You reference really well. You see it's a little bit of a bugbear, a little bit of a pet hate when a smaller independent letting agency will say something like, we do bespoke referencing. We'll Google them, we'll go on Facebook, we'll do all those things. And you might want to do all those things, but honestly, if you do, you'll always find something that you might think and take exception to. But what you really want is proper referencing from a reputable referencing company, and the acid test for that is, can I insure against it? Can I get rental legal insurance on that piece of paper? Because if you can't, it's not worth the paper it's written on, is it? The referencing. So do really good references.
Credit check. Landlord referencing, employment referencing.
Right to rent,
Yeah.
which the fines for not doing the right to rent have gone up recently to £30,000. Lots of landlords are not doing them.
Some landlords get really excited if a tenant offers to pay 6 or 12 months up front.
I always think, are you going to grow some cannabis in my house?
I wonder, yeah.
Or what's going to happen on month
What's
7?
going to happen month? Yeah, exactly. So if you let an agent tells you they've got someone who will pay up front for the entire term of the contract, make sure 2 months before that contract ends, they check back in. They ask for, your contract's due to expire in a couple of months. We need to now look at thinking about renewal, put them through referencing again. Don't wait years and then you find out month 7 or month 11, 13, the rent stops coming in. I'm always really wary of that.
Yeah. Perfect tenants. A couple of other things that I added into your bit here. I put avoid compliance and legislation nightmares. So top tip. You've spent a lot of time, money and effort in this whole thing, and you can lose every single penny of your gain by some stupid error. I hope everybody gets a gas certificate. You'd be silly not to, and
Yeah.
But what about not knowing that you need a selective license and having a rent repayment order from the day that they're moved in, and that's 3 years. All those gains you've talked about can all be wiped out. We see it all the time.
Definitely.
There's licensing requirements in places in Nottingham, and some landlords just didn't bother getting them 3 years ago. So now when the tenant figures it out that I can get 3 years rent back, they do, and they have to pay it. The landlord has to pay it. Things like that.
Perfect tenant is not, as well, someone who is a friend of a friend, or someone you kind of know, someone you used to work with. You think, oh, I know them, they're great, they're nice, they'll look after the house.
Tell your story. Tell
Which
your
one?
story. Your brother, what he was going to do. He was going to he's going abroad for a bit.
Yeah, and he's living in his own house. His own house, it doesn't matter that the back door's bolted up and it's not really compliant from a fire escape point of view. It's his own house, it doesn't matter. He does what he wants. He's a self-employed musician, he lives like he doesn't live on our terms. He's going to move someone in for 6 months while he's away working. I said, you can't do that, it's in a landlord licensed area. That's not a compliant door. Fine, move someone in for 6 months, but if he has a kitchen fire and can't get out, what's happened then?
Yeah, he's a mate, he's a good lad, Yeah, I'm sure.
He's my mate's mate.
Until he gets a girlfriend, your mate's mate, until he gets his girlfriend over, and they light the fire and she burns to a crisp, and then you won't be making mate anymore, he'll be suing you.
Or like someone else.
That sounds far-fetched, but I wouldn't live with that risk.
Another landlord we know that brought a house over, the tenant was trying to get a rental rebate on. They'd move that tenant in, friend of a friend sort of thing. Don't do it.
Get everything tied up, proper paperwork. Referencing isn't really compliant. It's just that's to get the right tenant, but the right AST, right to rent checks, how to rent guide, registering the deposit in the right amount of time. All that. There's about 17 things you have to do, and you can make hard work of it. And for some landlords, it's like, oh God, how do I even cope with this? But of course, for a letting agent or a well set up self-managing landlord, you click a button and there's a paperwork pack and it just gets sent by DocuSign. It's done. It just needs to get done easily.
Yeah.
And you can't slip up on a single thing. If you forget to register the deposit, well, you can't kick them out. Something else that we're starting to get asked now: every gas safety certificate for the whole of the tenancy.
All right.
You only have to keep them for 2 years. Some people might say 3, but either or 3. And if the tenant's been in there since 2007, you need to find every gas. It's not law. It's not in licensing law. It's not like data protection in terms of keeping stuff or keeping documents. It is simply the judge wants to see if you kick them out. It's time to ask for it.
That's true. Make sure there's no gaps.
No gaps. Yeah.
So
that's becoming a thing. Point. And it wasn't in the landlord's name. One of them, the gas certificate wasn't in the right name. Well, a few little things. This is only when you're in court and somebody's trying to wheedle their way out of it, which it's not going to stop things dead forever. It's just going to be a bit annoying, and you're going to have to do something else and go to the next hearing, which will cost you another 300 quid. It doesn't happen a lot, but in terms of why are you doing this? Why are you building a buy-to-let portfolio? Stress-free life in the future. Probably, retire early, or do something with less money worries. Well, don't replace money worries with other types of worries. That's all I'd say there.
Okay. Right. Next one. Easy or quick property types. What we know does well.
Yeah.
So I would say you want to be focusing on the sorts of house where the majority of people live. A typical 65%, 70% of the population live in 2 and 3 bed houses, semi-detached and terraced houses in built-up areas, with you're close to an Aldi, Lidl, a Sainsbury's and Asda, you're close to bus stops, there's a school. It's where most people live. Don't go too rural, don't focus on city centre flats. Yeah, that is it. That's where you're always going to have a strong demand. They're some of the easiest types of property to find. There's lots of them, hence why they're easy to find. They're easy to renovate, and they're easy to let out. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. If it feels a bit weird or wacky, then weird and wacky. You want it simple and vanilla box. I wouldn't have anything to add to that. Just simple, straightforward. I think when we've talked about areas, streets, picking out where the opportunity is in the country, yield, it'll naturally lead you to those kind of properties anyway. It just will. It's always interesting to me when you look at the kind of houses that we've been buying over the last 20 years, whether they're in Northampton, Nottingham, Derby, Mansfield, Sheffield, Rotherham, now in the northeast, northwest, Grimsby, wherever, they all look the same.
Oh God, yeah.
All pattern houses. They're either
they were built in the same era.
There's about 6 types of houses we buy. We'll buy a terrace house, a Victorian terrace house, end or mid or whatever. We'll buy a 1930s to 50s sort of utility house, ex-council house, but they're not anymore. There's a sort of a 1950s, 60s sort of more modern looking, but that kind of thing.
Yeah.
A 1980s brick built box for similar homes kind of thing sometimes. They're all looking similar. And even if you took the terrace house and the 1980s one, so something 1990 square footage and
exactly.
Even the layout sometimes is really, really similar, even though they're built 100 years apart. So yeah, very similar. UK lives in that kind of house. Why complicate it?
Exactly. Okay. The next one, it's really, we've already kind of touched on this with location, local knowledge. You kind of talked about that. I've got a different point anyway I want to make, and the 8th one was just don't touch anything that's leasehold. Don't get involved in leasehold stuff, as long as you're going to buy the freehold with it.
Yeah, apart from the long leasehold where the absentee, which is some of the coal mining places or steel towns mill towns. The mill owner used to own the freehold, and they've sold the long leasehold.
Terrace Street.
But the mill owner died in 1772, and that's quite common. That is a virtual freehold.
Yeah.
But what Adam means is
don't get modern flat with
leasehold. Why?
Because it's just going to bring you problems.
Service charge.
You don't have any control.
No
Service charge, ground rent.
Yeah.
Those things are going to go. Well,
I've got one. No, it's not there. So I own a couple. It's not there. I filed it away. Some what they call housing association has taken over the management of it. It's a block. It's the old Rally Square. And I get paperwork like that.
You've got to do stuff, haven't you?
Well, we don't, but they're very, very delighted in doing stuff. They're thinking that, there's a cladding problem in some of these things. They think there might be a cladding problem. There isn't. There's no cladding anywhere. But they're investigating it, and it's costing, I don't know, £750,000. I mean, when you spread it between every flat in the building, then it's not loads and loads. In the interim, they had to have a firewall 3 people just walking around and of course they make a little percentage on all these costs, so it's in their interest to just keep them coming. This is about the 3rd or 4th fire safety thing that they put smoke vents in. There was already smoke vents, well, they weren't quite to regs. Yeah, more and more. More and more stuff.
Leasehold flats. So I would say, if we've covered local knowledge in location, that leaves an 8th one, and I would put there mindset. Actually, your mindset for helping you find and grow and be a successful landlord. Don't get too bogged down in all the noise.
Screw it, just do it.
Yeah, speak to people and they'll go, oh no, the councils are out to get us, the government hate us, that sort of stuff. They don't. There's just unfortunately been a lot of bad landlords over the years that have done all the things wrong, cut corners that have tarred everyone with the same brush, but don't get yourself down.
Standards have increased. I mean, people, 60 years ago, people would live in a house with no central heating, no double glazing.
No, they'd have the fire on in the morning and
the evening. You wouldn't live in that house now. No. And as standards have increased, then that's the responsibility of a landlord to bring it there. If you're still stuck in 1972, then...
Landlord licensing, for example, is great. It's amazing.
Brings our value
I spoke to someone from the council after they'd inspected one of my places, and they were like, really complimentary, great. Can you put this banister up in the garden on the steps, an extra barrier? That was all it was. Then they told me about a guy down the road who needed to do countless other stuff to his house. And I just thought to myself, brilliant. If that's going to improve a house on the same road as mine, where I own one, that's what I don't want. Houses that look like they're unkempt and horrible on that street. Make it good. It'll bring the value up for everybody else.
Also, going back to the point of compliance nightmares, if you don't do it, it's part of the job. This is a business. Exactly. It's obvious. It is everything we talked about on the positive, which is do this, do that, right house, right street. Make this.
It's almost like a business owner complaining about employees' rights.
Yeah, also, it's a business owner.
What do you mean I've got to pay my staff holiday? It's like that. Moaning about
that. If you can't afford to do all these things, well, you haven't got a business. You bought the wrong house.
Yeah.
You got the wrong mortgage product. You've got the wrong house with the wrong rent. Something's wrong. It should just be these things are worked out. It's like that's the cost of it, and it should just fit into your business as a cost.
So they were my ones. You said you had a bumper bonus, something.
No, I've kind of covered them off in the. As Become a Builder was one of the ones. Here was another one. Be a good negotiator, and I'll put that in inverted commas because it really is about being prepared. Be a good customer for the estate agent. That's what it really is.
Okay, for when
when being a good negotiator.
Yeah.
You can definitely influence the price by being good at negotiating, but more importantly, if you are friendly with the estate agent, if you've got proof of funds, you know all your final numbers, so you're not being chased up. You can offer quickly. That I'm trying to put it right.
Be the agent's best friend.
Be the agent's best friend. It's easy. It's subtle stuff. I mean, you want to see them more often than not. Maybe walk in a couple of times a week. It won't take much. The biggest thing is don't waste their time. No fluff. Don't walk in every other week if you're not going to buy a house. Just wasting their time. The kind of person they come in and they want to. There's 20 houses. They want to view. Here's the window. I like this one, this one, this one. Can I book to view 20 houses? The manager's going, well, you're wasting somebody's time.
Yeah.
Go in, have a conversation about each one, and only view the ones that you think you've sort of tested. You don't be wasting their time. So that isn't necessarily no negotiation, but it starts all the way at the beginning, because when it actually comes to the price, realistically, there's very little negotiation. The
Mhm.
vendor is going to take the price they're going to take, aren't they? And you're going to pay the price you're going to pay. If you can meet, you can meet. But your chance of getting that sale agreed starts all the way back with a relationship with your estate agent. So negotiating isn't just, I'll give you 54, I'll leave 56. It's not just that, it's all the way through. You know, the day you put your offer in, part of the negotiation is, and I'm ready. Here's my proof of funds. I've got my solicitor lined up. I'll order searches tomorrow. Those kind of things. Final thing on that, in negotiation, if you like, the strongest position you can ever find yourself in as a negotiator is being able to walk away. Have good deal flow. Walk into lots of estate agents. Look at that. That's why it's taking us 10 houses to find one. It might take you 20 to find one. Have lots of options. You don't want to be, if it's a house you set on living in, maybe. That's you get that emotional attachment, but zero emotional attachment. You can walk away from any deal. Always leave the door open as you walk away. You say, door's always open. We didn't meet on this one, but I'll be about here. You're obviously over there. If you ever want to come down to meet me, walk away, and 20% of those will come back to you.
Definitely. Yeah. All right.
We're good.
I think that's it.
I think we're at the end.
Thank you everyone for staying. I can't see any questions in the chat today. No one's popped anything in.
Yeah, cool.
There's a link there to my calendar. Feel free to book a slot to have a chat with me if you've got anything you want to run through in a more personal way. But have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Have a nice weekend.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Bye now.